Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 19th, 2022 meeting of our Menlo Park Planning Commission. We are glad you've decided to join us this evening. Established by state law, our Planning Commission is composed of 7 volunteer voting age residents of Menlo Park, appointed to 4-year terms by the City Council. Our Planning Commission is not a policy setting body. That's the City Council. We are a policy implementing body. We review development proposals on public and private lands for compliance with our city's general plan and zoning ordinance. These can be found on our website. The Commission reviews all development proposals requiring a use permit, architectural control, variance, minor subdivision, and environmental review associated with these projects. The Commission is the final decision-making body for these applications unless appealed to the City Council. Commission also serves as a recommending body to the City Council for major subdivisions, rezonings, conditional development permits, zoning ordinance amendments, general plan amendments, and the environmental reviews and below market rate or BMR housing agreements associated with those projects. We work in close partnership with, we greatly rely on our city's staff of the planning division. These folks are responsible for coordinating the enforcement of the city's zoning ordinance and related policies concerning applications for residential, commercial, and industrial development projects. If this is your first time joining a Planning Commission meeting, especially if it's your first time this evening, we are really glad you're here. We encourage your active participation, whether you are an applicant or interested member of the public. And to learn how to do that, I'm going to turn to our clerk this evening, Associate Planner Matt Pruder, to explain how members of the public can participate during public comment this evening. Mr. Pruder.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Riccardi, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the public for tonight's meeting regarding procedures for communication. The commissioners will have their webcams on for the duration of this meeting. For those presenting on an item on tonight's agenda, we kindly ask that you also turn on your microphone and webcam during your presentation for your item. The staff member will then assign you to have keyboard and mouse controls if you're displaying a presentation. We then kindly ask that you turn off your webcam and microphone when done with the presentation portion of your item, unless called upon by the chair. During the public comment period, members of the public will have an opportunity to share their comments or questions by clicking on the hand icon on your screen, upon which staff will introduce you and activate your microphone. Alternatively, for those calling by phone for tonight's meeting, please press *9 on your keypad to notify staff that you have a comment. For any members of the public who are sharing a Zoom account or phone line with another commenter for this meeting, please inform staff at the start of your public comment, and staff will ensure that the other commenter speaks after you have finished your comment. With that said, I hand it back to you, Chair Riccardi. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Pruder. We'll now turn to item B on our agenda. That is roll call. I'll ask each commissioner to verbally respond to make sure that everybody can hear, beginning with Commissioner Barnes.
Good evening.
Commissioner Doe.
Present.
Commissioner Riggs.
Good evening.
Commissioner Tate.
Present.
Commissioner Thomas has left the commission. Commissioner Harris is not going to be able to join us tonight, so it is the 5 of us this evening. I am Chris Riccardi, the chair. My pronouns are he, him. We'll turn to agenda item C, and I'll turn to acting principal planner for our city, Karina Sandmeyer, for reports and announcements. Ms. Sandmeyer.
Good evening, Chair Riccardi and commissioners. So I have one update on the consent calendar. So we have 2 items, the minutes from April 25th and the minutes from May 23rd. And so the April minutes are in our traditional style. And then for the May 23rd minutes, we have those as in the summary minutes format, which we're trying out to help us catch up. And I think maybe also just use going forward. So that concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Question, Commissioner Tate.
Yes, I'm not. I thought when I read the minutes for May that the April 25th minutes were already approved. So did I miss something?
Oh, that may have been an error in the May 23rd minutes. That was in there. The April 25th minutes did come to the Planning Commission, but they were continued due to an error, and so they're back tonight. So if there's an error in the May 23rd minutes, we can either update that tonight or bring them back.
Okay, because it says on there that the April 25th minutes they passed. Approval passed.
Oh, okay. So actually that was for the court reporter transcript for April 25th. So there were two parts to those minutes. So I think that is correct. The court reporter transcript was approved. I believe the April 25th, the rest of the minutes, I'm not sure what date they came to the commission originally, but I don't think it was May 23rd, now that I think about it.
Okay,
So the reason for the court reporter transcript was, I think that was for the EIR scoping.
Anything else on that, Commissioner Tate, or is that okay?
that's fine. It just, since so much time has gone by, no one can seem to remember. So
Okay,
it just is what it is, I guess.
all right. Commissioner Riggs. I think you're still on mute, Commissioner Riggs.
Thank you. So just to complete that, this discussion, the minutes will be amended to clarify. So I guess this is a question for staff. The minutes will be clarified as part of this approval.
Well, I mean, we can amend them if that's part of the motion. I think that the confusion was that there's a court reporter transcript and then a separate minutes for the rest of the meeting.
And it seems beneficial to make that clear in this in these minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, and I also I guess perhaps in effect we have already pulled the May 23rd for discussion. Is that effectively what we've done?
No, not yet, because we're still on reports and announcements. We have public comment, then we have the consent calendar, and we'll see if somebody wants to pull at that point. Although, yes, I think you are probably jumping ahead. It sounds like there may be interest.
So it still, I guess, is a response to Ms. Sandemeyer's announcement that I believe we have commented on the past about abbreviated minutes. And we tried them some years ago and we had to turn around and go back. So I could understand the attempt being made for May 23rd and perhaps for a few others. But I did notice at least one absence of a comment that I particularly wanted to insert into the record and was not there because of the summary. And after some thought, I decided not to create any more work for anybody. But I would just like to know that the summary versions are temporary.
We can, yeah, we'll look into that. I definitely appreciate feedback.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions under reports and announcements? Okay, with that, Commissioner Tate.
I'd just like to echo Commissioner Riggs's thoughts behind the abbreviated minutes. I know that members of the community tend not to like the abbreviated minutes because when they speak, they want on record what they've said. So, and I believe that often us as commissioners, as Commissioner Riggs just pointed out, when we do speak and make points, we would like for them to be reflected without the public needing necessarily to go back and watch the entire video, but being able to just kind of skim through. So I think I would be in favor of this just being a test or something very temporary to get us up to date and going back to full minutes. And that's just, I'm just throwing it out there since we're on this topic right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tate. Anything else under reports and announcements? All right, with that, I'll close agenda item C. We'll move to D, which is public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda and items listed under consent calendar. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name, address, or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. And with that, I will turn to you, Mr. Pruder, to guide us through public comment.
Thank you again, Chair DeCardi. At this time, I don't see any hands raised for requests to make public comment. But just as a quick reminder, as stated earlier, if anyone is interested in speaking at this time, they're free to do so by raising their hand icon on their Zoom interface or pressing *9 on their phone. And if you'd like, Chair, we could wait a moment more just to see if anyone would like to join by commenting.
It doesn't look like we have large attendance this evening, but let's hang on just a minute in case somebody would like to.
Good thing.
All right, anything?
I'm still seeing no hands raised, so if you'd like here, you may close public comment. Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. We'll close item D, public comment. We'll turn to item E, the consent calendar. For the consent calendar, we can either get a motion to approve, or if a commissioner would like to pull one or both items, I'll note they're both labeled E1, so perhaps we can refer to them as April 25th or May 23rd if commissioners are so interested. Commissioner Riggs?
Yeah, I'll move to approve E1 April 25 minutes.
I think right now you either need to approve the consent calendar or you need to ask to pull one of the items, Commissioner.
Good point. Yes, I'd like to pull May 23.
Okay,
And
So-
at the same time, I'd be happy to make a move to approve E1.
all right. So we've pulled May 23 and we have a motion to approve the first E1, which is April 25. Do I have a second on that, or would Commissioner like to pull April 25th as well? Commissioner Doe?
Thank you. I'll second the motion to approve the April 25th minutes.
All right. Any comments or discussion? All right, so we have pulled the second set of minutes from May. We are now voting to approve the minutes from April. Commissioner Barnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs,
Yes,
Commissioner Tate.
I'm abstaining.
Commissioner Tate abstains. I will vote yes, so they are approved.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, before you make an announcement, make sure I heard that right. What was what meeting minutes are we approving and what meeting minutes are we not approving?
We're approving the first set of minutes from April 25th.
Okay,
And Commissioner Riggs has pulled the minutes from May 23rd, which we'll turn to in a minute. Is that
Got it.
what you understood you were voting on?
that's in accordance with my understanding. Thank you.
Okay, great. So with that, the motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. And we will now turn to the item was pulled, which is the May 23rd minutes from the Planning Commission meeting. And Commissioner Riggs, I'll turn to you since you pulled the minutes.
thank you. So I would like to suggest a clarification be inserted regarding the minutes report of approval of April 25 that would make it clear that the court reporter's EIR coverage was approved and the other discussion was deferred.
So
Or
if I,
the other minutes were deferred, I'm sorry.
so if I'm reading this is essentially the minutes from item E1 that day, which read approval of court reporter transcript of April 25th, 2022, Planning Commission public hearing on draft EIR for Willow Village Master Plan attachment, action motion second. So that piece, does that cover the court reporter part of it? And do you want to then add what do you want to add or suggest adding? That the minutes were
If the
tabled-
remaining, I would say the remaining minutes were not presented for approval.
If we gave, Ms. Sandmeyer, if we gave that as direction to you, could you take that direction? And is that good enough that we could approve them with language along those lines? Or do you, I'll turn to you. You make a suggestion to us here.
No, that works for me. Thank you.
All right, so this really, so commissioners would have to be comfortable that we're turning this back. We're going to approve these minutes with the sentiment that Commissioner Riggs has said. We could do that right now. Alternatively, somebody would have to craft specific language, or we would have to send them back to staff and revisit them in a future meeting. So my proposal is that we take the sentiment of Commissioner Riggs's comment that he just made on the addition that Ms. Sandemeyer said she could take, and that we could go ahead and approve them. But that's just a suggestion. A commissioner can make a motion in any way they would like.
So I would be happy to follow up with a motion for approval. And I will point out that I did, in order to be able to do this, I did pull out my notes from April 25 and May 23rd and read through the entire items so that I could bring myself up to speed. Which is represents my hesitancy up until now. And so I'd like to move approval with that suggested change. And I think the separate comment I will trust that we made during reports and announcements stands by itself.
Okay. So there's a motion for approval to approve the minutes with language that will be added by staff along the lines of Commissioner Riggs' sentiment about was the court reporter transcript approved, but not the remainder of the minutes. Is there a second for that? Or is there a separate motion? Commissioner Doe?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a first and a second. Any clarifying questions from the commission? All right, we'll go.
Just say thank you to staff for entertaining our concern.
With that, we'll move to a vote. Commissioner Barnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs,
Yes.
Commissioner Tate.
Abstain.
I will vote yes. So we will have approval of the minutes per the recommended additional language 4-0 with 1 abstention. Does that work, Ms. Sandmeyer, before I close this item?
It actually doesn't, because I should have, I apologize. I should have abstained on that because that's the May 23rd is the one that I was absent for, so I can't vote affirmative on it.
Okay, can we, since it would be 3-0 with 2 abstentions? Well, Ms. Sandemeyer, I'll turn to you. What should we do now?
Let's see, since there's no, well, yeah, I think 3-0 would pass with, since there's 5 commissioners present and there's no no resolution for the consent items. I would like to add that commissioners may vote yes, even if they're, or they may vote on the minutes, even if they weren't present.
So thank you for that. And I'd love to kind of tease that out a little bit. The machinations that Commissioner Riggs was asking for was perfectly fine with me. Is not the intent of approving the minutes to recognize the content of the minutes? And wouldn't it be necessary for me to have heard them to be able to agree with them? And maybe I'm not understanding what the intent is for approving the minutes. Help me out with that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally correct. Our city attorney has told us that commissioners on minutes where they weren't present, just to get, maybe to get minutes passed, or there may be cases where a commissioner listened to the tape. But I think in this case, we could vote again if needed, and I think 3 out of 5 would be sufficient.
Okay, so it sounds, sorry, Commissioner DeCardi, I don't mean to speak out of turn. May I continue my question?
Of course. Yeah, that's fine.
So with that said, Ms. Andemeyer, if I still abstain, it's your opinion that the 3 will make it pass. Is that correct?
So I apologize, my my video froze for a moment. I don't know if there were additional questions for me.
No, it's just a reconfirmation. If there is a new vote and I still abstain, it is your opinion that 3 votes will cause the consent calendar to be adopted and we can move on. Is that correct?
That's correct for the consent calendar. For other items where there's a resolution, we do need 4 votes.
Got it. And I will recognize that I do appreciate your advice that there are times where it can be voted on, even if there's an absence, for purposes which include efficiency of getting the minutes adopted for whatever reason. Point well taken. I will still abstain for this particular issue, and what you have said is duly noted. Thank you.
So I believe to actually do this the right way, we need a motion to reconsider the vote. We need a second, and we need a majority vote to reconsider the vote. And then we can redo the vote of the minutes. Do I have that right, Ms. Sandmeyer?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay, so I need a motion to reconsider the vote that we just took, and a second. Yeah,
I make a
Commissioner
motion to reconsider.
Commissioner Barnes makes a motion to reconsider. Do we have a second? Commissioner Riggs?
I'll second.
All right, any conversation or discussion? All right, we'll take a vote to reconsider the vote we just took. Commissioner Barnes?
Vote to reconsider, yes.
Commissioner Doe?
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs?
Yes.
Commissioner Tate?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. It passes 5-0. So we are now considering, we've rescinded that vote. We now need a motion and a second related to the minutes that we pulled from the consent calendar for May 23rd.
I vote to adopt the minutes for the consent calendar associated with the May 23rd, 2022 meeting.
Per the addition from Mr. Riggs, or just as is?
Inclusive of the addition by Commissioner Riggs.
Okay, so essentially the same vote we just had. Okay, do I have a second?
Oh, yes, I'll second.
All right, so we have a first from Commissioner Barnes, a second from Commissioner Riggs. Any conversation or questions? All right, so Commissioner Barnes,
Abstain.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs,
Yes.
Commissioner Tate.
Abstain.
I will vote yes, and the motion passes 3-0 with 2 abstentions. All right. Commissioner Tate.
I'm sorry, Ms. Santmeyer, I have a question. So if we are abstaining, we can still make a motion.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's probably not the best route. I think generally if someone's abstaining, they should not make a motion.
But so, however, I would reserve. It could be plausible that someone can change their mind after making a motion. So for whatever reason I chose to abstain, wouldn't that be? It's at the discretion of the vote can be bifurcated from the motion. And sometimes I don't see why bifurcating the vote and the motion, while odd and curious, from an intent perspective, wouldn't be okay procedurally.
Yeah, I can double check with the city attorney. I don't know if abstaining is different from changing. For example, if someone makes a motion to approve and they vote against it, that may be different than making a motion and then abstaining. But I can get clarification from the city attorney.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
just
good.
asking, just especially because of, we just had the conversation, getting clarity around abstention with, being absent from the meeting. So that's why I just to be clear really on procedure all the way around with this going forward. Thank you.
So Commissioner DeCardi, if we want to avoid that, then if I just chose to keep my vote a yes, then we could avoid this whole redo of this. We wouldn't have to check with the city attorney on anything. So as the chair, I offer to you that possibility. That the vote that we took that would not be in contention, which was the original vote, would stand.
Commissioner Tate?
Commissioner Barnes, I still think it's great for us to get the feedback from the attorney just going forward. So we'll have a better understanding.
I agree. But could we do that concurrently and just let this issue lie? And then that's a very good data point to come back. But just for the purposes of efficiency, I'd be okay with voting, having my vote still retain a yes and not feel out of integrity with abstaining with not abstaining. Is kind of how I would look at it.
Ms. Sandmeyer, so at the moment, you're going to check if what we just did works or not, correct? If it does work, we're done. If it doesn't work, it would simply come back to us. Is that correct?
Yeah, if there was an issue, we can bring it back at the next meeting.
All right. So I appreciate the sentiment, Commissioner Barnes, and I appreciate the discussion. And I agree with the idea of adding clarity. Rather than asking for another vote to rescind the vote we just took in order to go and do it again, I think I'm going to be satisfied to just leave it as is for right now. This may have passed. If this was something that was material for moving through for an applicant that needed to have a project done. But my sentiment is that these are minutes, they'll be important to get done. But that if in fact what we've just done doesn't work, we'll simply get them next time and we can correct it then. So I would use my chair's prerogative to go ahead and move forward with Ms. Sandmeyer's direction to us to go ahead and close this item, which is item E, and move us to item F, which is the public hearing. We have one item under item F tonight, item F1, that's to adopt a resolution to approve a master sign program for mixed-use development, Middle Plaza at 500 El Camino Real in the El Camino Real Downtown Specific Plan Zoning District. And with that, I am turning over to Associate Planner Khan. Ms. Khan, welcome. Thanks for your patience with us this evening, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners and members of the public in attendance. There is no update to the staff report, but I am here to assist with any questions that you may have. We also have Michael Birch from the applicant team to answer some questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. And Mr. Birch, would you like to make a presentation or opening comments or be available to answer questions?
Yeah, I'd be available to answer questions. I could highlight a couple of things from the letter that I included with the application, just to provide a little context around what we've put in front of you here tonight. I want to thank Ms. Sandmeyer and Ms. Khan for their all of their assistance in getting us getting this application in. And they've been very, very helpful in making sure that we had a good opportunity to get this MSP in for your examination. We put together this MSP document over a period of about 3 years, as I've been part of all of the Springline meetings, and I was really close along with the text amendment hearings that you guys did, 3 or 4 hearings, I believe. We were sort of doing test fits on the current state of what the sort of Springline proposal and all of the negotiations and discussions with the Planning Commission, with you folks and with staff. So I'm very aware of how carefully that text amendment was put together in order to get to the point that there was the opportunity to address these unique projects in Menlo Park. So I just, so that you're aware, by the time we started to really pull our numbers together, we had a very, very clear idea of what the new zoning code was. The basis of our package was really designed about 3 years ago, as we started to recognize that we were going to need to put forward a signage proposition at some point, though there wasn't necessarily supporting language in the zoning ordinance. But we again knew that in order to have a successful mixed-use project that includes 3 office buildings, 3 residential buildings, and retail, that we were going to need to just really be careful to share with city staff and share with the Springline applicant. And I've also put a good deal of information in front of the Planning Commission as a guest at the previous meetings on the text amendment. So we're very sensitive to, and I understand very much what this Planning Commission has as sensitive points. And I'm really happy to talk about where we are tonight. We have a very unique property, 1,600 linear feet of frontage in a single parcel on El Camino. And this really what I'm going to call intense mixed use. We have a much longer frontage than the Springline project, the better part of which is taken up by the residential buildings. So there's a quiet point in the middle for signage, and certainly the signage around the plaza, which you would expect at the Middle Plaza intersection, is the most intense signage in the project. Outside of that, I think we're probably all fairly versed in the new language and what some of the touch points are. I would be happy to present any portion of the project that you would ask me to. I've got one other quick comment. Fatin, could you bring up our the page of our MSP with our tables and calculations?
Yes, just a moment.
No one is speaking, correct?
That's that's right. I think
That is correct. We are just pulling up the plan set where we have that documentation. So please give us a moment. We will have it up. Apologies for the technical difficulty as we try to get this up and running, but for reference, commissioners, you may turn to page C7 of the staff report for the reference table that Mr. Birch is talking about.
If the commissioners have that page open in front of you, it's titled Sign Matrix. It's sheet 1.0 in the bottom right corner. I'd be happy to start down this road.
Have commissioners been able to open that up? I have. Commissioner Riggs, you're good.
Go.
Here we go.
There we go. There we go. Super. Couple of quick notes. The right-hand column here, total signage allowance, the new ECR DSP language, and the calculated square footage allowed for, or the square footage per the calculation for a 1,600 linear foot frontage comes out to 1,847 square feet. We have some surplus frontage. The maximum allowable signage for any parcel is 1,000 square feet. And that was a number that was arrived at certainly through the series of meetings that we were all part of. And we understand that very clearly. We, because we have this nice long quiet pause in the middle of the project with the residential, it allows us to be able to really meet the needs that we're going to have for leasing commercial space and for having retail space. And we have got our commercial signage allowance, our retail office and commercial signage allowance squeaked right in at 999 square feet. So that was a calculation that we came to quite accidentally at the last day of making some tweaks. I thought it was quite interesting. The total square footage of our directional and addressing signage is 521 square feet, and those signs are exempt per the updated language, and I can walk you through those again as well. Another calculation that's part of the new zoning guidelines for signage is the building top parapet signage, and we'll flip to a couple of slides here of the office signage. The majority of our signage is not on a parapet. And if we look at the section building 2, oops, that was perfect where you were. Building 2 here in the center, we have options for signs on building 2. So there is an option for an up high sign or a down low sign for tenants. There will never be more than 3 signs on that building. It's just that we've provided 2 options based on what a tenant may want to do. At the same time, what we did do was we treated everything, whether it was on the building mid-band, the top of the first floor, or up at the top of the building on these architectural features, not on parapets. We treated those as we accepted meeting the challenge of getting within the building top signage. And if we go back to the table on the calculation page, there you go, the table on the right. We did meet, I believe, the spirit of that building top signage. I know the sensitivity around the office signage for this planning commission, we fit within that. And that was whether those signs are up high or down low. So we're very cautious to, again, I think work within the boundaries that I felt were the spirit of what the planning commission was looking for. Those were 2 quick clarifications that building B had options for up high and down low. There would never be more than 3 signs. And I wanted to give a good explanation of how we worked with the numbers and the zoning guidelines and as a starting point. So I'd be happy to present any other part of the package or answer questions from this point on.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Birch. Thanks for that overview and for being with us this evening. And as you noted, for all your work over many years. I want to make sure I can have us turn to public comment, but are there any clarifying questions of staff or for Mr. Birch before we turn to public comment that we should look at? Commissioner Riggs.
Thank you. I'd made a note just to clarify that there are no parapet signs on the residential buildings. I think I heard Mr. Birch refer to that as a quiet zone. Just wanted to confirm that.
That is correct. The only signage on the residential buildings are two modest monument signs at grade level at each of the driveway entries. And there's a selection of very small point of entry signs at grade level at gated entries off of El Camino. But the signage, the signage, the highest sign on the residential building are the illuminated addresses. And that would be as high a sign as we have. There's no large skyline or parapet sign advertising the building and shouting down the street. So
Very thoroughly answered. Thank you. And then just to clarify, you are, and I'm sorry, I've been out of the business a few years because I should know your company, but you're both a consultant and a purveyor of signage for Stanford in this case.
we are. We're a unique design studio with a complete implementation project management capability as well. So
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Any other clarifying questions from commissioners before I turn to public comment? All right, let's do that. Let's turn to public comment for item F1. Mr. Pruder, can you lead us through?
Thank you, Chair DeCardi. At this time, members of the public can raise their hand, with the hand icon, by pressing *9 on their phone if they're calling by phone. And at the moment, I don't see any requests for public comment. Happy to wait a moment.
Yeah, let's go ahead and wait a moment. All right, anything?
I don't see any hands raised still. So if you'd like, you can close the public comment period at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pruder. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to the virtual dais for questions, discussion, and ultimately a motion from the commission. Who would like to begin? Commissioner Riggs.
Thank you. We did do a lot of work for 1300 El Camino and had several meetings, and have to appreciate the work of all parties, particularly Mr. Birch's company and our staff, which kept hanging through until we effectively generated zoning code. I do have a couple of questions, a clarification and a question or two on this particular application. First, I just wanted to confirm that in effect, we don't have any restriction on wayfinding interior signs. I think that's the purpose of them being exempt. I just wanted to confirm that.
That would be a question for Ms. Khan. Is that correct, Mr. Riggs?
That would be appropriate. Thank you.
Through the chair. Yes, that is correct.
All right, that's great. I'm a big fan of wayfinding signage when the architecture doesn't always make it clear on any project. And then I'd just like to say that in review, I think there are some larger signs that are just appropriate and suitable. The signs that are indicated on page C8 are in blue, and there are only a couple of them per building. Let me pull out my C8. Are totally appropriate in my opinion. I do have a question though about why we would bring 40-inch high signs down to the retail level. I mean, part of the logic that we worked through for allowing 40-inch up at parapets was that frankly, they're 40, 50 feet in the air. And that's just a longer view, just, you know, the hypotenuse of the triangle, but also the fact that they are oriented, you know, a quarter mile down the street. But at the first floor level, that really wouldn't apply. So they would seem quite large right at first floor level. It doesn't seem consistent with what we've talked about back with the 1300 review. And I'll be so bold as to ask Mr. Birch, was this just something you thought you'd suggest and see if it would fly? Through the chair.
Yeah, Mr.
Well,
Birch.
Yeah, and your point is well taken. I was just looking for these here. I think that I have a how about this? On one hand, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? At the same time, I think that my interest in allowing for the larger signs at retail is the retail signage is the most I don't know, critical day-to-day lifeblood of the business, the lifeblood of the retail establishment that, you know, that's what gets people to turn into the project and park and understand, you know, the shops that are there. The parapet signage up higher, more of a vanity point for a large office tenant. The residential signage is very simple. I could see bringing the retail signage down in size a bit. I don't want to get to a point that we lock the retail tenants into a box where they don't have an opportunity to say, have a large icon and a set of letters, you know, sort of typical retail logo. And I know we had long discussion. There were long discussions. You had long discussions about logos. I listened. So I just wanted to make sure that there was a good opportunity for the retail tenants to express their brand identity. Sometimes that takes a little taller sign at some point. This does come out as a 3-foot by 15-foot block. So I could see bringing that down, but that was my logic.
All right, and understandable. I mean, when you represent a client, you do want to have what flexibility you can get. But we've had only a couple of buildings that have been oversigned, but once oversigned, they stay that way.
Right.
Like, I don't remember, I think it's 1701 El Camino, or I get 1701 and 1901 confused, same architect, different results. So I would like to, if through the chair, if I could ask Ms. Khan a question.
Yes, of course.
So Ms. Khan, did we at 1300 El Camino, we had a smaller maximum height for retail signage, didn't we? Not 40 inches down at first floor?
Correct. For 1300 El Camino Real, we approved 40 inches on the parapet level, since that project had parapets. In this case, 500 El Camino Real does not have parapets, and we did approve smaller retail letter height for station 1300.
Do you remember if that was 30 inches, 36 inches, or what?
I do not recall on top of my head, but that would be a range.
Is it possible during this discussion to research and verify that? Because that is sort of our reference point, especially after the extended discussions and many meetings that we have. I hesitate to start cooking the chicken over again. They tend to get rubbery. Yeah, so if that's possible.
Yes,
have a
indeed.
reference point. All right, thank you. I will note in the meantime, the 3 office buildings, I think total 34 signs, not counting directional or address signs. So I don't think we're in danger of undersizing the signage on the 3 office buildings. I do think, but I hate to say how many office buildings I worked on, and I'm glad they're in the past. But just for the sheer amount of work, not that they weren't enjoyable. But I do feel relatively comfortable that this is a well-signed building. I would just like to exercise some caution and not exceed what we ultimately agreed to for 1,300 at the retail level. That said, and I know I've got Ms. Khan busy doing research, but I would also like to confirm through the chair, did we have an exception for logos in terms of height? For example, are logos submitted for design review if they want to exceed the character height?
That's also a question for Ms. Khan.
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs, yes. Yeah, by all means.
So through the chair, I did take a look at the plans that were approved for Station 1300, which is 1300 El Camino Real. We did approve for a maximum of 24 inches letter size for retail at the lower level.
Oh, thank you.
I do apologize. I would like the question repeated so that I can help answer that one.
Of course, I was aware that I was prompting you to do 2 things at once. The other is whether logos have an exception or a path for individual approval, because certainly a logo, just by nature of design, it could have an element that is outside the range of we might start with 24 inches, but Safeway is nice and compact, and it fits within a rectangle, but an awful lot of logos do not. Do we have a path for logos to, at some degree or to some percentage, exceed a height limitation on characters?
Yes, and that path would be through a condition of approval, since we do not have anything explicitly defining or providing variation for logo height versus tenant identification.
Okay, great. There is a path then. Okay. I remember we used to at one point have a lot of signage come before the Planning Commission. We actually, back 15 years ago, we were still doing colors, and I think we're all glad that we're not still involved in that at the commission level. But that sounds like a great alternative. So again, through the chair, if I could circle back to Mr. Birch, where the Springline project has 24-inch retail. I think we did that rather thoughtfully. But just to make sure we're not missing anything here, because some of it's true on Springline too. Oak Grove is set back a fair amount, but is there an element to 500 that puts retail signage further back from El Camino that would encourage us to increase the size over 24 inches for the retail signage?
I don't believe so. I don't believe I could make a case that there was some obstruction. We've got the plaza, which is fairly open, and we have signage that runs along the middle plaza extension and the plaza itself, or the middle road plot and middle plaza. So I don't think that we would. We are currently at 36 inches is what we have for this particular sign that was coming down 4 inches from the parapet signage. I would be agreeable to 24 inches. It would be nice if we could maybe work toward having an allowance for a 36-inch by 36-inch logo. We'll call it a logo, the opportunity to have a logo element at up to 36 inches tall by 36 inches. And I think that would keep a logo or an icon in a box and probably address the majority of retail logo issues. We often incorporate those into a package. Got a diagram that's not in this package that shows that opportunity for that added logo area. And that may be a good way to allow for that logo to become part of a sign.
Yeah, I think that is it's an alternative that I would certainly want to hear my fellow commissioners respond to that. But I think that gives some leeway to the logo issue, in addition to what Ms. Khan just described, that there could be what amounts to simply a sign application that gets a brief review in order for a condition of approval. I guess that is essentially like a use permit. And then I just wanted to point out to my fellow commissioners, we all need a certain level of perspective as we try to judge these. Even though I feel being able to refer to 1,300 approvals, it was the safest and the best route for us. The elevations on, I guess it was what we call C8. And so I don't remember if that's 1.1 on the drawings. Let me see if I can pull it up. 2.0 in terms of the Scott AG drawings, or C8 in our booklet. The signage is shown with dimensions on it that refer to the chart that's back on C7. But just to call to all of our attention, where there is lettering put in, like option A and option B, those letters are actually notably smaller than the proposed height, which is part of what got my attention. And so I'll just point out that if it looked like the phrase option B along Office Building 2 West Elevation looked like perfectly subtle signage, it's actually, I think, 50% bigger than that, than the letters that you see there. Ms. Khan and I reviewed that briefly this morning. And so with that, I think I've held the microphone long enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Riggs. Other commissioners with questions or comments? I have a couple questions, if that's all right, while the commissioners are thinking. Mr. Birch, you mentioned that the tenants would have the choice between option A or option B in your presentation. And at another point in your presentation, you noted that the signage higher on the building would be sometimes considered more vanity signage as opposed to wayfinding signage for a business, as opposed to one down at the retail level. I just wondered if you could, I guess for me, it's if I have an option between A and B as a tenant, and one of those is vanity, the other one is to know where the front door is. I just wondered if you could walk me through that a little bit.
Oops, there we go. There we go. Yeah, you bet. I think, let me clarify my point. I think that the office signage, these are major tenants who are taking either an entire building or who are taking, a floor plate. And I think that the prestige that goes with having your name on a building on El Camino, on El Camino in Mountain View, is really probably the primary, objective behind the signage, whether it's lower to the street or whether it's higher on the building. So vanity was probably not the right word. I think it's prestige. I think it's about an address in a prime location. Remember, the tough part here is that the front door is around the back of the building in a garage, which is why the wayfinding signage is so important. Because, these projects have front doors that are mostly symbolic at this point because a building needs a front door on the front elevation, and that's the way buildings are designed. But we enter these buildings mostly through garages and that sort of thing now. So that said, wayfinding wise, it is good to know that you've gotten to the location. You're going to turn in one of the driveways, but I think that the office signage is generally about prestige. The up high and down low question stems from the fact that we as a group, Stanford Faculty Housing and Scott AG and the office developer, we couldn't come to a clear determination as to whether or not a tenant would want the signage that was down at a lower height, closer to El Camino. It's a really nice signage opportunity. The design of the buildings really support a brand there. And then there are tenants who like their sign up at the top of the building, and there's nice opportunity there. So we really just wanted to leave both options open for a tenant to make that decision. We really studied it and decided that if there was if there was going to be 3 tenants with signage rights, that 1 down low and 2 up high wouldn't look odd, or the reverse of that. So we just wanted to leave those options, and that was our primary objective.
I appreciate that. That's really clear. I'm gonna ask you a question. I'll preface it with 2 things. One, because you followed this, I voted against our recommendation at Springline because I thought that recommendation still allowed signage that was too big and too prominent. And partially this is just my own experience of ignorance coming from growing up in a family of architects, artists, and designers, and taking a couple urban planning classes. And I'm not an expert in this, but I do have that perspective. And I say that because I can absolutely appreciate the importance and the interest of the tenants in that question. But I also wonder about our role in representing the interests of community members in that question. And why would it be a bad thing in representing the community to suggest that appropriate community scale for a building and for signage that maintains a feel as much as possible that this is an accessible, walkable, quieter community, as opposed to something that you would see on a strip mall or out by 101? Why wouldn't that also be a consideration to suggest that there should be signs that are smaller and that you shouldn't have signs up high on buildings because those are not useful for community members? Can you walk me through that from your perspective?
Well, I think my answer, I understand the question, and I followed those discussions before. The challenge that we all have as a design community and cities and as architects and even the signage designer is that these projects are becoming more and more dense, and mixed use creates a really interesting scenario that we didn't always have these office buildings pushed together with residential. And there was a clear line between downtown and the offices and maybe the commercial district and residential districts, and even retail pushed in this tightly with the signage. So my answer to your question is that I really do understand the question. I do understand the objectives of even how the entire El Camino specific plan was put together, the downtown specific plan in El Camino Real. So we're trying to be sensitive to say what is an appropriate sized office sign in this context on this frontage, but at the same time meet that need. It's a balancing act when you're pushing residential and walkable streets together with commercial. This is, downtown San Francisco was downtown San Francisco. And again, we're pushed together tight. So we're trying to find that balance too. And I'm hoping that we can do that with you. So.
I appreciate that. That's a very thoughtful and detailed answer in that mix. And I would just say from my perspective, I think that care comes through because the wayfinding signage, the residential signage, the look and feel that you're proposing, I think all of those look very, very nice in this mix. And so I think that does, from my perspective, show that consideration that you're working toward in our community. I don't need to belabor it. I will still vote against this for the same reasons and out of consistency. I just simply think this is wrong. It's wrong for our community. I appreciate what you said, but I think that these are really important things. And that the size of signage, especially because you're in a unique location where you dominate a frontage and where there's nothing else there, means that you actually are competing against nobody except yourselves with the signage. And that gives you an incredible opportunity to, in fact, get a lot done with less. But that's just my perspective. And I wanted to be clear about that with everybody because that's how I'm going to vote. And completely respect what you've done and the time you spent on this. And I know this project's going to be a great credit to our community. Other commissioners with questions or comments? Commissioner Riggs?
I hope I've given others a chance to pop in and speak. And if not, please interrupt me because I'm inclined to make a motion. Having listened to the chair's comments and the very capable presentation of a professional, which I appreciate. So we are being asked to approve a sign program. And so I would like to move that we do that with a couple of stipulations. And one of those was that where the major signage is indicated option A and B, that the and the height is indicated there on C7 as 3'4" or 40 inches. That be limited to the high signage, and that the first floor signage, which I think is the one called option A, would be limited to 24 inches, the same as we approved for 1300. And then, although I sympathize with the request for logos at 36 by 36, I'm inclined to just acknowledge, as staff has indicated, that there is a path for logos to be approved so that they are larger than the 24-inch. Since I happen to believe in simplifying application processes, I would like to propose that logos be allowed to fill a percentage, and I'm going to wing it here, and I hope staff is prepared to edit, that a logo be allowed to fill, say, 50% of a 30 by 30 box. And I would certainly take feedback if that comes too close to designing from the DS, and I'd be happy to withdraw that. And then I just wanted to comment. I don't think I commented on the monument signs when I spoke earlier, and I thought they were actually fairly subdued for a project of this size, and attractively designed. So while I also very much have the right side of my brain sitting where the chair sits regarding signage. I hope that that this application can move forward on a par with Springline 1300 El Camino. Again, having spoken too much, I'll say again, my motion would be to approve the master sign program with the reduction of the lower option to 24 inches, but with an allowance for a logo to fill 50% of a 30 by 30 box or go for a conditional permit.
All right, thank you, Chair Riggs. If it's okay, I'm going to check with Ms. Khan for clarification before other commissioner comments.
Yes, Chair DeCardi, I've noted 3 potential changes. One is for option B to be properly dimensioned on the plan set, which is sheet C7, which the applicant is aware of and has made changes, but due to the last minute edits, it was not put in the plan set before publication. It was corrected this morning. So this is something that they would do. Additionally, I've heard that the retail level signs should be reduced to 24 inches. And thirdly, allowance of logos to fill 50% of a 30 by 30 inch box. Would that be an accurate observation of the conditions?
It is. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Khan. So we have a first on the table, a motion from Commissioner Riggs, and as confirmed for clarity by Associate Planner Khan, I'll recognize Commissioner Barnes.
Thank you, Chair DeCardi. I think that the work that we did on Springline was worthy work indeed. And when I picture these 2 projects, I think the guidelines for 1300 transfer quite well to this project. And I'll note that this project has more extensive architectural variation than 1300. Has different uses, and within the uses, whether it's office and residential, the architectural features are more pronounced, more varied throughout this project. So I think the impact of signage may even be less on this particular project in terms of the perceived impact of how it's going to look starkly on the project, whether it's from a sign or whether it's from a visibility standpoint or a, standing out standpoint. So I don't have a concern about that, and I think it's well done for this project. And I am in agreement with Commissioner Riggs's motion. I want to thank the applicant for their consent. I would acknowledge the applicant's consent and agreement that the 24-inch number is good for ground level retail. And I'm comfortable with that being part of the condition of approval. I don't have a sense of what that 50% of a 30 by 30 box is. Is there a way that I can get a sense of what it is that represents so I can see that? I don't know that I'm smart enough to conceptualize what that is. So through the chair to staff or to whomever might be able to conjure up that so I can visually understand what that looks like.
Yeah, Mr. Barnes, you may not be the only one with that question. So to staff or to the applicant, some way the commission could understand what that would look like.
what I gathered from that is that it would be 50% of 30 inches on both sides, which would bring it to 15 by 15 inches. But I will defer to Mr. Birch to see if he has thoughts on this.
I think, and Commissioner Riggs, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that you are imagining a larger a larger height would be allowed for a logo, would have a horizontal constraint then of 30 inches, and 50% or less of that area would be part of a letter or a logo or something of that nature. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yeah, please, Mr. Riggs, yes.
So sometimes I forget that I'm not speaking within, and among a group of architects and miss actually explaining that there have to be wheels on the car. So by 50%, what I meant was, say on a piece of paper that was 30 by 30, 50% of it would be covered with ink and 50% of it would be background. So for example, the box logo imagines 4 flaps and 2 visible sides of the box below. And within, it's usually floating free, but if it were within a white background square sign, it would probably be 30% or even 20% of occupying of that 30 by 30 box. My idea was that if the logo has an arm sticking out and maybe an arm sticking down, that they would need more than the 24 by 24 to exist sort of in scale and in character. And the more I speak of this, the more I realize this is a design concept issue, and I probably shouldn't have offered this at all. But I think I was just hoping that there was a way that some logos wouldn't have to go through an approval process. But that said, I realized that by the time a retailer has signed up and starts their tenant improvements, it's going to be anywhere from 6, 9, or 12 months before they can occupy their space, and they can probably get a sign approval during that amount of time. So I don't know exactly how to gauge consensus among my fellow commissioners. But I guess I'm inclined to withdraw the 30 by 30 suggestion. And perhaps staff will work on that and make a proposal someday that will shorten logo approvals. But I think it would simplify my motion if I simply withdrew that.
So then withdrawing the original motion, replacing it now with a motion that are the first 2 elements that Ms. Khan talked about. One was just the changes on the plans that she mentioned. And then the second was the reduction in the height to 24 inches at the,
Or what's called option A.
for option A.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with all of that, that's a lot that's happened, Commissioner Barnes, while the floor is yours. So I will give it back to you at this point.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure it was coming back this way. And I want to thank Commissioner Riggs for his thinking on that. I appreciate the attempt to create efficiency in the process. And at the same time, then pulling it back by saying, oh, we got to be sure we're cooking up here, because doing it at 8:20 in the evening with good intentions may not make for the best, most bulletproof guideline. So with that, and knowing that there is this local approval process, and knowing that we can hope for efficiency as staff looks at that local approval process, and believe me, staff doesn't want to be working on this stuff too much anyhow, in terms of approving logos. having faith that should that need streamlining at some point in the future with some type of guidelines that are more prescriptive or more, I guess, providing for more preset conditions that people can work with, then we'll get to that point in the future. So with that said, I will second the motion with the 2 points from Commissioner Riggs that are conditions for approval. And I'll thank the applicant for getting us here and staff for getting us here as well, and Springline for spending all the time getting us here as well. So thank you.
All right, we have a first from Commissioner Riggs, a second from Commissioner Barnes. I'll recognize Commissioner Doe.
Thank you, Chair. Before we do vote, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Riggs for making sure that the retail at street level was in line with the 1300 project and bring that to our attention. And also, I just wanted to make sure I understood that was one of the things. What was the other condition? The 24-inch for the option A lower level, and what was the other? I'm sorry, I missed
All right.
that.
Ms. Khan, do you want to restate your first item?
Yes, through the chair, Commissioner Doe, this would be to revise the elevation drawing on sheet 7 to reflect proper dimensioning of the signage on option A and B. Right now, it would be option B, as option A is proposed to be reduced to 24 inches.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Khan. And I had one other question just to make sure I understood the drawings. And this I think would be to the applicant, the blade signs, am I seeing them right in the perspectives on sheet 2.1? They're shown with a longer vertical, shorter horizontal, kind of a curved profile. And then somewhere else in the drawing set, I saw them as a 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot square. I just want to make sure that I was didn't miss something. And
No, you have a good eye. The rendering on page 2.1 is, I'm going to call this a legacy rendering. And I'm sure anybody who's used to working with these, we get these beautiful images and then buildings change a bit over time, but we fall in love with this beautiful perspective rendering. And so that is definitely a legacy element. And the signage that's described as the 2'6" by 2'6" is the proposed blade sign in the locations that we've indicated.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Riggs. I believe you're on mute, Commissioner Riggs.
We are laboring for accuracy. As we started the meeting, so shall we conclude. It was actually sheet C8 that has the elevations on it. And just for the rest of the commission, I had brought to the attention of Ms. Khan this morning that and I mentioned it during my comments, that if you look at, say, option B up near the top of, say, the middle elevation, building 2, there is text inside the orange boxes, but the text is not 40 inches high or 3'4". The orange box is. And so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the commission. And I had asked if this could be modified for tonight. Ms. Khan, I don't really know that it's up to you whether you want to have the drawings modified to that degree. My real concern is only in changing the what is labeled option A, the retail signage size. So the clarification, I will leave up to you.
Through the chair, if I may answer Commissioner Riggs.
Of course.
So Commissioner Riggs, this would be that the maximum height of the signage would be the 3 feet 4 inches, as they have shown here, with the option that the tenant signage may be smaller than the 3 feet 4 inches, but the maximum proposed by the applicant is the 3 feet 4 inches. So for them to have some sort of flexibility. I hope that clarifies. If you still want these to reflect accurately the total signage background and then the letter size, we can get into that detail per a condition of approval. But I do know that option A, which is on the lower retail level, that would be reduced from the 3 feet 4 inches to the 24 inches.
Yes, and that's really all that concerns me. I'm not concerned about editing C8 now that the hearing is concluding. So to the chair, I guess I should clarify that my motion is to approve the master sign program, but to revise those signs indicated as option A. They would not be 3 foot 4, but they would be 24 inches to match prior approvals.
Commissioner Barnes, is your second okay with that?
Yes, and it did feel kind of, one was a condition of approval, one was a amending of the documents submitted. So I think this is a cleaner process. So yes, I'm in approval.
Okay, that sounds good. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? All right, seeing none, we've got a first from Commissioner Riggs, a second from Commissioner Barnes, and we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Commissioner Barnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Riggs,
Yes,
Commissioner Tate.
Yes.
I will vote no. The motion passes 4-1. Congratulations, Mr. Birch, and best of luck finishing out this project, which is looking fabulous, and again, going to be a great part of our community.
Super. Thank you all very much.
All right, have a good evening. So that closes item F1 on our agenda. I'm sorry, Commissioner Riggs, you have your hand up.
my error, sorry.
That closes item F1. We'll move to item G, which is informational items. I'll return to Ms. Sandmeyer. I think you
Like I
are,
was-
muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're muted.
Pardon me. Yes, so the next meeting will be October 3rd. We have a couple of smaller items for that one. We have a generator use permit along El Camino Real. A use permit for a taller fence along Santa Cruz Avenue. Then we have a use permit for noise exceedance for the Menlo Park Community Campus pool heaters. And then we have a BMR agreement that's going to the Planning Commission for a project that is only a building permit project, but the BMR in lieu fee will be going to Planning Commission. So those are the projects we have for that meeting. For the following meeting, we haven't finalized the agenda.
All right, any questions for Ms. Sandmeyer?
No.
All right, seeing none, we will close item G, and that leaves us with adjournment, which we will do at 1:30 PM. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening and rest of your week. Be well.
Night.
Thank you, Chair DeCardi.
Thank you.